What happens when Hollywood's toughest icon sits down on morning television and everything goes completely off the rails? What was supposed to be a routine promotional interview quickly turned into one of the most explosive, live, TV moments in recent memory. Asterisk. The Good Morning America studio buzzed with its usual energy as Sylvester Stallone arrived to promote his latest film. From the moment he sat across from Michael Strahan, however, there was a noticeable tension in the air. After a brief welcome, Strahan jumped straight into a pointed question, mentioning critics who described the film as a desperate attempt to recapture past glory. The word desperate instantly shifted the tone. Stallone's expression hardened. He questioned why the conversation had started with such a loaded remark. Strahan defended himself, saying he was simply asking what viewers were thinking and raising legitimate questions about Stallone's age and career longevity. The audience grew quiet as the exchange became increasingly uncomfortable. Stallone pushed back, accusing Strahan of chasing controversy rather than having a meaningful discussion. He argued that there is a difference between journalism and provocation, suggesting that the question was designed more to spark headlines than to explore the work itself. Strahan insisted he was doing his job, but his composure began to crack under Stallone's sharp responses. The tension escalated further when Strahan implied that Stallone might be overly sensitive and unable to handle criticism. That comment pushed the conversation into personal territory. Stallone stood up, challenging the notion that he had been coddled by Hollywood and firing back that sitting behind a desk reading questions from a teleprompter did not make someone superior. As both men stood facing each other, the atmosphere in the studio became suffocating. Producers signaled nervously from behind the cameras, unsure whether to cut to commercial. The audience watched in stunned silence as the exchange turned into a debate about arrogance, relevance, and respect. Strahan accused Stallone of clinging to relevance, suggesting that his time had passed. Stallone responded forcefully, defending his decades-long career and the enduring impact of his work. He argued that longevity and cultural influence speak louder than a single critical headline. The argument intensified, with Strahan slamming his hand on the desk and accusing Stallone of acting like a child who couldn't accept honest questions. Stallone shot back, redefining what he believed childish behavior looked like, confusing loudness with authority and mistaking confrontation for credibility. What began as a simple film promotion had transformed into a raw, unscripted confrontation about ego, media pressure, and professional identity. The studio remained frozen as two powerful personalities clashed, leaving viewers witnessing far more than a standard morning show interview. Stallone rejected the accusation that he was a bully, turning the focus back on what he believed a host's responsibility should be. He argued that the job was to make guests feel comfortable, create meaningful conversations, and serve the audience by drawing out authentic stories, not by tearing people down to appear powerful. The criticism clearly struck a nerve. Strahan had built his broadcasting career on being approachable and likable, and being labeled a bully on his own show hit deeply. When Strahan insisted it was his show and that Stallone had no right to question his methods, Stallone pushed back, saying the show belonged to the viewers. He warned that the audience was watching him damage his own credibility over what he called a cheap shot at someone with decades in the industry. Strahan's anger flared, and he nearly let an insult slip before catching himself mid-sentence. The near profanity hung in the air, and the gravity of the live moment became unmistakable. Stallone calmly challenged him to finish what he was about to say, suggesting that America was watching closely. Strahan struggled to regain control, torn between professional restraint and wounded pride. He defended his accomplishments and the platform he had built, but Stallone responded with blunt honesty, saying that everything Strahan had worked for was at risk because he couldn't handle a straightforward conversation without turning it combative. As the tension lingered, Stallone reminded him that calling his work desperate and questioning his relevance wasn't simple journalism, was personal. Strahan clung to the argument that he was doing his job and asking what viewers wanted to know, but Stallone insisted there was a difference between curiosity and ego. He suggested that the show had become a platform for self-importance rather than genuine dialogue. The word leadership shifted the tone. Strahan defended his success, pointing to ratings and high-profile interviews. Stallone countered quietly, asking whether success built on diminishing others was truly something to be proud of. The question seemed to shake Strahan more than any earlier outburst. For the first time, vulnerability surfaced. Strahan admitted the immense pressure of live television, the need for every question to land perfectly, the constant competition for ratings and viral moments. Stallone acknowledged the pressure, but emphasized that it was no excuse to compromise respect. Pressure, he said, can either build something meaningful or justify tearing others down. When Strahan claimed he only wanted to make good television, Stallone gestured around the silent studio and called the confrontation a train wreck rather than quality content. The metaphor stung. The room remained still as the weight of the exchange settled over everyone present. Stallone softened slightly, telling Strahan he had talent and presence but had confused provocation with professionalism. The words landed heavily, and Strahan's confidence visibly crumbled. What had started as a heated argument shifted into an uncomfortable reckoning about ego, pressure, and the true purpose of journalism. He repeated that he only wanted to make good television, but now it sounded more like a confession than a defense. He insisted he was trying to ask the questions that mattered. Stallone responded that meaningful questions should be asked with respect and curiosity, not malice. They should come from a genuine desire to understand, not from a need to create conflict. That, he explained, was the difference between a true journalist and a shock jock. A heavy silence settled between them. Michael's hands trembled as he tried to grasp the magnitude of what had just unfolded on live television. His career and reputation felt as if they were hanging in the balance. In a quiet voice, he admitted he never wanted to be a shock jock. He had wanted to be respected. Stallone told him that respect cannot be demanded while disrespecting others. It doesn't work that way, not in broadcasting and not in life. Michael looked around the studio at his crew, colleagues, and the audience who had expected a light-hearted show but instead witnessed a painful confrontation. Overwhelmed, he wondered aloud how he could recover from this. Stallone advised him to take responsibility, stop making excuses, and admit that his ego had driven the situation off the rails. He needed to decide what kind of broadcaster he wanted to be moving forward. Michael shook his head, saying this was supposed to be a simple promotional interview. Stallone replied that it could have been if he had treated his guest like a human being rather than a target. Behind every guest, he reminded him, is a person with dignity and a lifetime of experiences deserving respect. The realization hit hard. The confident host who began the segment was gone, replaced by someone forced to confront the consequences of his actions. Michael admitted that what hurt most was knowing he used to be better. When he first entered broadcasting, he genuinely cared about storytelling and connection. Somewhere along the way, that changed. Stallone suggested it changed when he began caring more about reactions than connections, measuring success by noise instead of value. Michael sadly acknowledged that controversy attracts attention, goes viral, and satisfies network demands. Sometimes, he said, being respectful feels like a luxury he cannot afford. Stallone firmly disagreed. Respect, he said, is not a luxury, but the foundation of the profession. Without it, ratings and viral moments mean nothing. The word soul struck Michael deeply, and he sank into his chair. The fight drained from him. He admitted he had become so focused on competition and relevance that he forgot why he started the job in the first place. He had forgotten there were real people behind the interviews. Stallone agreed, reminding him that guests trust him enough to share their stories. That trust is sacred, and it had been treated like a game. Michael then asked how to fix the damage and regain credibility. Stallone told him to acknowledge what happened, not just privately, but to the viewers at home. He must tell the truth and own his mistakes without excuses. Finally. Michael looked directly into the camera, his face reflecting the full weight of the moment and the beginning of genuine accountability.